Inspiration, success stories, expert advice, strategies, new ideas, and amazing conversations. Everything you need to become a great speaker. This is Óscar Santolalla, and welcome to Time to Shine. Hello, and thank you for joining a new episode of Time to Shine. Most of the people who speak in public do it already internationally, but just few of them can do it regularly in different language and understanding well the difference in culture that are required for being successful in this context. So I'm going to present you today a speaker who really have this experience. Lasse-rouhiainen is an international leading authority on video marketing and social media. He is an in-demand speaker and trainer for business schools and universities on social media and new emerging technologies. Lasse has written 4 books, several of which are bestsellers on Amazon.com, and offers training in 3 different languages: English, Spanish, and Finnish. Lasse has spoken in more than 14 countries in over 4 continents. Hello, Lasse.
Hi, Oscar, and thanks for the nice introduction.
It's great having you here, Lasse. And yes, I think it's the first time we're talking about this international context, so I will start asking you why a Finnish guy is in Spain and from there doing his business international. What was your motivation? How you start this international business?
Yeah, so maybe one reason is that my parents always have been traveling and working abroad and so on, and I have always been interested on other cultures, other countries and people and so on. And then something like, 18 years or 17 years back, I was living actually 1 year in Mexico, so I learned the Spanish language there. And then I was studying in Finland in the Haga-Helia, and later simply found like a summer job in Spain, in Madrid, and have been here ever since then, which is now 14 years. So why I'm here? Well, I don't know. I like it, but also it gives me that international aspect somehow, where I can work in different languages and also travel to different destinations and so on.
Well, that's really great. And I saw that you really are in many countries. You have been recently in US, in a conference, and I saw from your Facebook feed that you have followers from all over the Spain and Latin America. Almost every possible country is really following you. So that's pretty great. You have a great reach there. And yeah, you also have some conferences and training in English and Finnish, correct? You do it regularly.
Yes, exactly. So in Finland, I have been doing some like in company. Well, actually, it's not the word you use in English, but basically company trainings in Finland. And then I teach at the Haga-Helia University at Helsinki online. So those are all in English. And yeah, so I would say most of the presentations are in English and in Spanish. Now that we are recording just next week, I will be doing one workshop here in Spain, which will be like 10-hour workshop in 2 days, and that will be in Spanish. So both English and Spanish quite often.
Mm-hmm. And has this been somehow challenging when you started doing in several languages? What are the common hurdles of mistakes that you can make at first when you want to engage in different language in different countries and it doesn't succeed? What are the reasons that?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I would say that probably there has been a lot of mistakes, and then you learn. So I would say that the biggest thing is practice. And biggest thing is like self-confidence and self-awareness, and also getting the right feedback. So it's really important to have the right feedback. Just to give you one example. For example, I was giving like webinar trainings like even almost like 9 years ago. and it was in English. It was one of the first time I was like teaching some business people how to use social media, and MySpace was then big. So I remember I started my speak then saying, oh, by the way, I'm from Finland and my English is not perfect and so on. So it was really interesting. One participant gave the feedback that don't say those kind of things and just focus on the main content, because nowadays not everybody speaks perfect and people don't care and blah, blah, blah. They only care on your thing. So what we can learn there is that I didn't have my self-confidence and awareness was not 100%, and I was more thinking about myself than for the listeners and so on. So let's say one mistake would be that if you start by saying, oh, my Spanish is not perfect, my English and blah, blah, blah. So that would be like one mistake. Just share valuable insights and things. So that's like thing I did in the first. And then in Spanish, maybe that was easier because I already had then my girlfriend and now wife. We had already been together a long time, and I was in the Spanish-speaking environment long time before I started to give presentations. So maybe that was more interesting. But I would say that the most important thing is that to practice and share valuable things and getting feedback and learn every time you do something. Try to learn and go to the next level, so to speak.
Yeah, that's true. The type of confidence is true when you might feel that your language, the second language you are using for business, you are not ready, and just don't say anything. Just give your content, because there are people who will be really interested in what you want to say. And as you say, they want to hear about apologies or things like that, because they will follow you anyway, or at least they will watch fully your first video. And so
exactly. And if I can add one more tip for that, I would say use humor and some joke that is really related to your audience. So that helps you to connect with the audience. If you make them laugh or smile, they have this feeling that you are in the same level with them and so on. So that's really good. So let's say that you have like accent and you don't speak perfect whatever language, then making one specific joke, which is really simple and so on, can help a lot, because they are like, oh, this is really like nice person and so on. So that's one thing that I recommend if when you are starting out.
That's true. Putting also a bit of this self-deprecating humor, no, a bit joking a bit yourself with the accent, right? That it's people will like it because you will be different.
Yes, exactly.
Oh yeah, and actually one thing that also came to my mind now we are talking about is that when you want to start having your new persona in the second language, you might start imitating someone, and that can be also like backfiring. If you imitate too much someone, you will sound like a cheap version of this one. I don't know. You might have seen some examples, right?
Yeah, and that would be another mistake. Like what I recommend and what I was thinking when you mentioned some of the topics we would be talking is that what I try to do is I try to start the presentation, every presentation, particularly if I'm like abroad somewhere, so that the first things that I say in the first 5 minutes is extremely relevant for the people. So when those things are extremely relevant for the people and helpful for them, they totally like forget your accent and all the other things, because now they are paying attention 100%. And it doesn't have to, if your accent is the thing and so on, it doesn't matter. And what I mean by this is many speakers or many people, when they are doing speaking, they first think about themselves. So they are thinking like, oh, how many people will I get to talk to? Oh, this is my first time in this country, how great this is, blah, blah, blah. But you should all focus on the audience and the topic. So just to give you one example to make this simple is, for example, many times I talk about like social media, like video marketing, and nowadays like how emerging technologies is changing the business landscape and so on. So, for example, what I do, how I start is that I start by asking a question like, just to give you an example, I was doing a presentation in Colombia, Bogota, 2 years back. So the presentation kind of like started like this, that how many of you are currently using WhatsApp? And you know WhatsApp is extremely popular in Europe, but also in Latin America. And back then, nobody had done presentations about it. So I asked them, like, how many of you are doing something? And I asked them to raise their hand. And this thing of raising hand is really good because you get them with you and you ask extremely relevant question. So, for example, almost everybody raised their hand because everybody was using WhatsApp. And then I say that in this presentation, we will learn like 3 methods of how to use it more effectively and how to use it for business. So people were already like extremely paying attention. And as an introduction, it worked really well. And then you don't have to say things like, oh, I have traveled 30 hours or, oh, I just ate your food or something like that. Those kind of cultural things you can say at the end or later. But in the beginning, it's really good to get their attention and for them to understand that you are giving them something of value. So anyhow, this is like my recommendation because the most important thing people are asking is that why they should listen to you. And if you ask them a relevant question that they will say yes, then they will pay more attention.
Yes, the importance of the opening, right? Opening also in this international context. No, many people they know you came from very far, but not everybody wants to hear about your journey to come there. They want to already hear about the topic, right? And that's what they're expecting, something really, really interesting about the expert that has come from very far. And related to that also came to my mind about openings. You stress the importance of openings. Actually, Winston Churchill had a quote saying that open amenities are opening inanities, which means that if you are too bland, like to want to be too polite, too bland, like starting, it becomes like a stupid thing. I mean, it's that's what he said. He has to start really strong, going to the point.
I recommend that, and I always use, like right now, like 2 weeks back, I was in Los Angeles talking for people who didn't know me. I have never seen them, and so on and so forth. And I just did that. So everybody like raised their hand, and they were immediately listening. So they were immediately with me rather than checking their Facebook or email or something like that. And I also had that feeling, that now they are listening, and now we are moving on and so on. So I wanted to comment that also I have been listening your podcast here, and I listened the one episode where Mikko Hyppönen gave amazing tips and really good episode for everybody to listen. And he said that it's really good to open with the story, which I agree if you are already a good public speaker and so on. But most people are not when they start. So anyhow, if you are really good, open with the story. But I recommend to open with the question, and maybe even 2 questions. And these questions have to be related to them, not to you, and their country and their settings and the time they are living on. And then you raise your hand, and you get like like raise your hand if you blah blah blah. So this way you really get them going. And the problem with story is that you have to be really good, but the story has to be related to those people. So let's say that you go tomorrow, or if I would go tomorrow to Chile, and if I start telling a story, people are wondering like what this story has to do with me. So maybe it's a really good if it's some story that has to do with some person in Chile that I met or something. So there has to be that connection. And many times in international settings, this is what I see many people are missing. They are kind of like not figuring out how to make it interesting for people who are listening.
Yeah, that's also very correct. That if you say like a story has to be preferably relevant for the place you are, because that will also help you to connect with this audience. Something of course, it's difficult to find stories for every country you visit, but you might find another ways is using not necessarily at the beginning, but at some point you use a quote, for instance, the same. Use a quote that is for that country. Now, don't use the typical well-known quotes by, let's say, U.S. presidents or two international people. But yeah, using this customization for the country you're visiting is very, very effective.
Exactly.
What else could you tell us? What is your best piece of advice for speaking in international or multicultural contexts?
Yeah. So if you want, I can give you like an example of what I tried to do, and it has been quite useful lately. So basically, let's say if you give like an example, tomorrow today somebody would say to me that I have to get to the plane, and tomorrow I would be speaking in, let's say, in South Africa or in Australia or in Argentina. So what I would do is, number one, like I said, I always want to make it really relevant. So and my topic is mostly new emerging trends and things like social media, how to leverage Facebook, and then how to leverage some technologies like virtual reality. But what I would do is I would go to Google News. So everybody can go to news.google.com and you can search some news related to that topic and that country. So I would search for Argentina, and if I would go there, Argentina and social media or something like that. That would be one thing. I would simply see what people are talking about there. Another thing, I would try to find some friend if I have. So, for example, I have like 7,000 Facebook fans or followers. So earlier you were able to like search out of them. When I went first time to Honduras, I had no idea of that country in Central America. So I searched there and I found that 3 people are following me from Honduras. So I simply sent them a message and I say, hey, I'm coming to Honduras. How is everything going? And they, that's great that you are coming. So one of them said to me, yeah, this like online marketing and social media is actually growing a lot and it's really good and people are getting more excited and blah, blah, blah. And then I think it was him. And then I also searched in Google News and I found this news that there was new law that the government of Honduras had just done like 1 month before to help companies to start their online business. Okay. So anyhow, I go to Honduras in the first day after traveling like 25 hours or something, because there's no direct flights. In the first day, the organizers had organized like a TV interview for me. So it was really interesting. Go to, sleep with jet lag. And when you woke up, they came to pick me up and said, now we have like 3 different TV interviews. So it was really interesting. I went directly to that interview and then the people there, how in the TV it goes really fast. And they say, so what are you like, can you share something like what's going on? And say, yeah, you guys have this new law that's helping, online marketing and social media and so on. And they were like, wow, this is amazing. Thank you so much for coming here and sharing this news and blah, blah, blah. And then when I had the presentation, I did the same thing also. I put like a screenshot of that news and so on. And so anyhow, people were like, wow, how can that be like so relevant? And that's amazing. Like this person knows all these things. So nowadays you can easily find these kind of things just doing a little search. And another thing that I would do, and I did, is that I always want to talk with some local people. So maybe that's a local like organizer of that seminar. And if that person is not local, then I would always try to talk like with the first people who come to the seminar. I would try to like say, hey, how are you going and how is it going and blah, blah, blah. And so what are you, in my case, I would ask, like, for example, nowadays I give a lot of talks about how to leverage Facebook live video. So I would ask that hey, have you used Facebook Live or have you seen anyone to use that? And then you get some like feedback and maybe they say, oh, well, this one company is doing it a lot. So what I would do is then I would put like a picture of that one company doing that Facebook Live, and that makes it really relevant for them. Okay, so in the beginning of my presentation, I want to put examples that are extremely relevant for them. To continue with this, when I was in Bahrain in the Middle East, I was doing my presentation late at night. That's another thing I need to do. It was really interesting when Mikko Hyppönen was telling how he's preparing. But what I need to do, I never can do my presentation like 1 week ahead, but I do it. I prepare some of the things 1 week ahead, but I do it mainly just like for 48 hours before. And why this is? Because while I'm doing the presentation, I'm like visualizing it and preparing and so on. So anyhow, when I was in Bahrain, it was about YouTube marketing, and their YouTube, we have YouTube from left to right, and they have it from right to left. And it was really funny. I had to do like screenshots of YouTube, how it is in Arabic language, and talk with the person in the reception of the hotel and ask, is this now in Arabic? Because you can change the language. And it was funny. He said, no, that's some other language. I don't understand anything. And then we changed it to Arabic. And then I took a screenshot. And that screenshot that I'm talking about YouTube, but hey, this is like YouTube in Arabic, that made people like really pay attention. And they were like, wow, this is for me. This is not some guy talking something I cannot apply or something, that this is really for me. And obviously then talking about with people, actually that time my friend Arto was there, and I talked like, what's now happening when it comes to videos? And it was like 4 years back, there was this thing called Gangnam Style. If you remember, it was a viral video that get 1 billion views. And he said that there's this video called Gangnam, like Saudi Arabia Gangnam Style. So that was a huge thing. So then I took, again, screenshot of that video. Maybe I played it, I don't remember, but people liked it a lot. And they felt that I was like a number one expert of what's happening over there. But it was simply preparing and asking people like, what's happening right now regarding this topic, and then putting some of these in the beginning of your presentation. Because if you start with your presentation talking like 7 minutes about yourself, and then another 5 minutes about something which is not relevant for them, their attention goes away, and they are, watching their email and not paying attention.
That's what really great examples. You start with a hook, right? Whatever you find the best, so your findings from the place for the place you are visiting, put it at first.
Yes.
Actually, this also, the news search is a really very simple solution for enhancing your international presentations.
Yes. And another, maybe at that list, in my case, I also put like statistics. So I talk about social media nowadays. If you give presentations about social media, you can go to website like Social Bakers. You can see the Facebook pages of every country in the world, and you can see the top Facebook pages. And for example, I put that list, and this was the same thing with the Honduras example. I put a list of the 10 biggest companies that are doing like Facebook marketing, and one person, like a business person, was amazed, and he came to say, and he said, "Wow, how can it be that you are there in Spain, and you come here and you share like knowledge that I should know, but I have no idea this, and how is this possible?" And it's only possible because I use these sources that most people are not using. So definitely sharing some kind of list of that, or using Google News and finding some new statistics that you can say that, hey, I just found this statistics and this is relevant for you, and so on.
Yeah, but it's important also to have very recent statistics, news, or something.
Yes.
Not only something that came from decades ago. Okay, I know something about this country, but comes from decades ago. So I think that's not that effective either.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, excellent. Great piece of advice. And I know you have mentioned already, you work a lot with videos, Facebook videos, and other ways to do marketing with videos. So many things are getting already online. And what about the fact of speaking in front of an audience? Something that you do, you have mentioned many times. Is because of the videos, because of this online world that we are living, is becoming less relevant, obsolete. So what's your point about that?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and I have been thinking about it. But I would say nowadays, giving presentation is still, giving presentation without internet, right? Is still the number one way of impacting and communicating with people. And that's why It's really helpful skill to learn. I recommend it to everybody, and I'm still learning a lot and getting a lot of tips and advices. And internet is kind of like, how would I say, it's not taking it over, but it's like maybe amplifying it or helping it a little bit. So basically, for example, now as we record this, I saw that there's a big event in Lisboa in Portugal with 50,000 people talking about startups. And they also, there's 50,000 people there. And yesterday when they started, there was like 10,000 people watching the Facebook Live of it, which was really interesting. So a lot of people.
Is it Web Summit? No, which one is it?
Yeah, Web Summit. Yeah, correct. And in a few weeks we have Slush in Helsinki and so on. But so basically what I see is, and let's say a good example of this is, we have this year we have had the U.S. election, and hopefully we don't have to go and talk about politics. But as an example, what we can learn is that the two candidates in the last days, the only thing they were doing is they were going to new cities and they were doing presentations in public.
Speeches.
Because that's the number one thing to communicate and impact the people. If online webinars would be the number one thing, they would only do online webinars from their office, right? Yeah. But we know that's not the thing. So that's why I think that even though we have more and more technology all the time, that still remains to be one of the most important skills. And I highly recommend everybody to learn more and more, because that will be something that machines cannot do in the future. Thanks to artificial intelligence, many tasks will be done by machines in the future, but that's one that cannot be done, right? Because people want to see other people and so on. So I see it as becoming even more important, I would say, than in the past.
All right, interesting your points, and is true. At least at the moment, and in the next year, is the technology is going to amplify what is done on the stage with live presentations of speeches.
Yeah, exactly. It will be bigger, and I would also say that many times not everybody cannot go and watch someone to speak, because maybe they have to travel a lot, or maybe they will be priced. Yeah. But in the future, we will have more of these kind of things, like I said, for example, this Web Summit where 10,000 people are watching, or Slush in Finland. But in the future, live streaming will be everywhere, which means that we will have, for example, 5G networks in mobile. So thanks to this, people can do live streaming all over the place with their mobile phone. And we will see presentations of different, we will see them on Facebook, but we will see presentations different parts of the world. And rather than now 10,000 people watching, maybe we will have 100,000 people watching, because they will be so normal. So I would only say that they will amplify this public speaking and help people who are public speakers or want to do presentations and so on. But at the same time, like I said, I really want to highlight this point, that it's so important to learn it. And it's so important to learn, even if you would speak to 5 people, give a presentation. It's so important to learn these skills, and it's something that cannot easily be replaced by technology.
Yeah, I agree with that. Lasse, could you now share with us what is your favorite quotation?
Sure. Well, I actually have. Can I share 2?
Yes, you can.
Okay, because I have so many, and I like quotations. In my last book, I put quotation before every chapter. I just think that they are great. And when it comes to presentations, by the way, I didn't tell, but I always I try to share one quotation before every topic. So, for example, last time I was talking about Facebook Live. So there was one quotation, and then I talked about virtual reality. There was one quotation from Mark Zuckerberg and so on. So quotations are also good in your presentation if you have PowerPoint and so on. Okay, but this is from Nelson Mandela, and he says that education is the most powerful weapon which we can use to change the world. And it's really, really interesting. So education is really the thing, if you think that most of our problems come because, not everybody has education. So, for example, terrorism and many problems, they initiate from the lack of education. So that's why I like this quote a lot. And also with public speaking, you are giving a lot of education. Actually, the other one, well, since I mentioned the other one, I will now say it, but there would be so many. But one of the topics I'm now also giving public speaking, and this is more related to the technology, is simple quote, and this is simply says that artificial intelligence will be the new electricity. Okay, and this is from Andrew Ng from Baidu. And we can later talk about artificial intelligence, but basically it's a topic that I give a lot of talks nowadays, and I think it will totally change how we live and how we do business in the next 3 to 5 years. And most people are totally unaware of it because they're so busy with the many things they are doing during the day.
Yeah, very interesting quotes. Now, could you share with us one book that has been particularly inspiring or influential?
Okay, this is also so difficult because I read a lot of books. I have too many books in my home, and then I have 300 in my Kindle. So it really depends. It would be easier to say that give top 10 of books, right? But again, what I'm mostly doing right now, and is to help people and businesses to understand how they should quickly change and adapt to the changes that are happening with emerging technologies. So related to that, there's a book called, let me just get the name here. It came two weeks back. Just a second, because I don't want to give a name that's not okay. So there we go. So the name is okay. So now I found it. Okay, so it's called Technology Against Humanity: The Coming Clash Between Man and Machine by Gerd Leonard. So it just came out a few weeks back, and although it has that kind of dramatic title, it's not a dramatic. So it basically tells that in the future will be amazing thanks to many technologies. But it's also written by a European who understands the technology from the point of view, how would I say, more human point of view than many Americans, which I admire and follow, and so many Americans who talk about technology and the future. But many times they don't take this aspect of how societies and countries need to be organized or do changes and adapt to the technologies. So anyhow, that's the name, Technology Against Humanity. And then the other thing I would say is that I would simply listen a lot of podcasts. I think they're amazing. And thanks, Óscar, for doing your podcast. That has been thing I have been listening podcast for the last 6 years and learned a lot. And the other thing for all young people or not young, I would also read a lot of personal development books as well.
Yeah, thanks for... you mentioned Technology versus Humanity by Gerd Leonard. Yes, I still haven't heard. I know it's very, very recent. He has been in this podcast a few months ago, and it's
really,
yes.
I need to listen to that.
Yeah, he has been in. Yeah, he really has amazing ideas about the future. And what I like, I think you also mentioned in some way, is that he sees everything in a positive way, no? Because often when we hear about the future, it's scary. But he does this very positive touch and very human. That's
and I mentioned that I just wrote a book that talks about the future of education, and I also mentioned that thing. And most of these negative things comes from Hollywood. It's all
true.
When technology is shown in the Hollywood movies, it's also always something bad, like Terminator or something that will kill people. And then that's why people don't understand how positive the technological or emerging technologies will be in the future. So that's amazing. I actually, right when we stop, I will listen to that interview. That's really interesting. But so anyhow, I like that book. But also, like I said, a lot of nowadays, in order to adapt and be successful nowadays, is to get to know yourself better. So that's why I would do a lot of development books, depending on what you like. And I would say self-awareness is one of the main skills for the future. It also helps you with public speaking, by the way. The more self-aware you are, the better public speaker you will become.
Yeah, couldn't agree more, Lasse. Could you now tell us one exercise, something practical that we could put in practice and do it daily or weekly, what we call a routine to shine?
I would say that start your mornings the right way. So what I mean by that is that it depends a little bit, but I used to go to run in the morning, like quick run, like 10 minutes. And now I go to the workout on a gym, and I also listen podcast during that. And I would say that changes everything when you do it. And I would also add that when you are speaking in public, that's so important, because you want to go there with energy, with clarity, and so on. So that would be the number one tip also for public speaking. And just to give you an example, when I went to Los Angeles, I was there 4 days, really also meeting people and really interesting seminar, but I had to travel like 25 hours, right? And then I was in jet lag. So what people normally do is that they eat really badly and they don't do any exercise and so on. And then when they have to give this public speaking, maybe they say, oh, I have such a jet lag and so on. But what I did is every morning I went to the gym. I was actually in 4 mornings. So I was there 4 days earlier. I went to the gym every morning, and I was already like visualizing my talk. And I was visualizing people getting like excited and grateful of what I was sharing. And I visualized them later coming to talk with me and so on. So I was kind of like mentally preparing myself for my presentation. And it was interesting since I did this exercise, or it was just like 20 minutes in the gym running and doing some exercise, but it also helped my brain to get even more clarity for my presentation and give it even more to these people, like adapt it even more for the audience. So every morning I got like one new idea that I then applied to my presentation and said, oh, maybe if I mention this, then it will be really more relevant. And at the end, the talk was great, and people came to talk and ask and so on. So that's really what I highly recommend, that start your mornings well, whatever it is for you. Some people want to do yoga, some people want to meditate, and so on. There's also a book maybe we can mention called Miracle Morning. I know many people are following that. That's also really interesting. And that would be one habit, definitely. Start your mornings the right way.
Excellent. And that's actually part of your piece of advice is every time you go to another country, you travel, pick a hotel that has a gym. That will help you a lot.
Yes. It is so important, and it will let you to get out of jet lag, and it will give you clarity and the right mindset to do what you want to do.
Excellent, Lasse. This has been a great interview. A lot of great ideas you have told us. So thanks for that. Please finally tell us how we can learn more about you, follow you. What are the best ways for that?
Sure. So basically, you can type my name, lasse-rouhiainen, on Amazon. I have 4 books there in 2 different languages. The latest one just came out. It's called The Future of Higher Education. And so there you can see the books, or on my website, lasse-rouhiainen.com, that maybe we can put as a link. And then Twitter or Facebook. And if you want to contact me, maybe Facebook is a bit better. Well, you can contact me both ways, or Twitter or Facebook. And then, of course, I have videos on YouTube, but you can check those. But I would say Facebook and Twitter are the best ways to contact.
Yeah, I guess you are everywhere in social media.
Yeah, nowadays you have to be everywhere, yes.
All right, thank you very much, Lasse, again, and all the best.
Thank you so much, Óscar.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Did you like it? Please subscribe to our podcast in iTunes, Stitcher, or visit us at timetoshinepodcast.com. Until next time,